Good morning, everyone. We would like to invite you all to our IEFR webinar session led by Dr. Uday Saxena on the topic of my journey of fundraising in biotech from seed funding to IPO. So before moving to the talk session, we would like to give a brief introduction about IEFR as well as Dr. Uday Saxena. So IEFR, Indira and Tishwar Foundation for Research, created by Dr. Uday Saxena in his parents' name. This is a 2-year-old foundation at the forefront of empowering women scientists, aiming to cultivate leaders who will drive innovation and progress in the dynamic field of life science. At IEFR, our mission is clear to empower and support women scientists in achieving their full potential. We are committed to provide comprehensive training, mentorship, resources that equip women, particularly freshers, with the skills and opportunities needed to excel in life sciences. IEFR offers specialized training programs tailored to enhance technical expertise, research capabilities, and leadership skills in life sciences. We believe in the power of mentorship. IEFR facilitates mentorship program in the tagline of Talk series, where experienced professionals provide guidance and support to aspiring women scientists. IEFR has proudly presented its first Lifetime Mentorship Award to Dr. Akhila Venkateshwar, and the second time we presented Transforming the Field Award to Dr. Redana Pallu, Dr. Markandeya Gorantla, and Dr. Ratnakar. Through our initiatives, IEFR envisions a future where women scientists play a role in shaping the future of life sciences. We strive to create a supportive ecosystem that empowers women to achieve their career aspirations, drive innovations, and address global challenges in health and technology. By investing in women's leadership and expertise, IEFR aims to create lasting change and contribute to a more equitable and inclusive scientific community. And I would like to invite Ms. Beniha to introduce our speaker, Dr. Uday Saxena.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. It is a great honor and privilege to introduce our esteemed speaker and founder, Dr. Uday Saxena, a distinguished scientist, visionary entrepreneur, and influential leader in the global biotech and pharmaceutical industry. Dr. Uday Saxena is the founder of Indira and Tishwar Foundation for Research, a foundation passionately dedicated to empowering and training women scientists. He is also the co-founder of Utopia Therapeutics, an innovation-driven company focused on developing cutting-edge vaccines and stem cell platforms. Dr. Uday Saxena holds a PhD in biochemistry from Memorial University, completed postdoctoral research at Columbia University, and received executive training at Harvard University. His scientific excellence is matched by a strong track record in industry leadership. He has served in key executive positions including Vice President of Drug Discovery at Arthrogenix, Global Chief Scientific Officer at Dr. Reddy's Laboratory, and CEO of Caris Therapeutics. Currently, Dr. Uday Saxena is the board member of Startup Pharma, a publicly traded US company, and serves as a chair of Product Development Committee at Bharat Advanced Therapeutics, which focus on oncology drug tailoring for Indian patients. He also chairs the Scientific Advisor Board of Sinvic, a biotech firm working on antimicrobial resistance, and is an advisor to In Silico Minds. He also sits on the board of Orchard Venture Partners. Early in his career, Dr. Uday Saxena was part of the renowned team at Pfizer, Parkes Davids, that discovered Lipitor, the most world prescribed and best selling statin drug. A serial entrepreneur, Dr. Uday Saxena also co founded Reagene Bioscience, a pioneer biotech startup known for developing 3D bioprinted humanized model of disease for drug development and translational research. Dr. Uday Saxena has granted 41 global patents, published over 60 scientific articles, authored 3 books on cricket, entrepreneurship, and COVID 19, which is available on Amazon. He is also deeply committed to mentoring young scientists and startups, and he regularly serves as the reviewer for prominent funding bodies like CSIR, DBT, DST, and University of Hyderabad. Dr. Uday Saxena career reflects the powerful synergy between science, innovation, and leadership, and his contribution continue to shape the future of global healthcare and biotechnology. Join me in warmly welcoming Dr. Uday Saxena. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Beniha, for the introduction. Now moving over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. Very kind introduction. Share my screen. Put it on slide share. Yeah, so yeah, so this is, as I said, thank you so much all for joining. Essentially, what I'm going to do is walk you through my experience on raising funds. Is there an echo? No, okay, no echo. Okay. In my close to 30 years of experience, and this is specifically designed for first-time startup companies, their CEOs, their CSOs, and essentially, as you know, in biotech, you need a lot of money, and there is a well-defined process on how you can raise the fund. So that's what I'm going to walk you through. A couple of things. Most of my experience in doing all this has been the United States, so that's what I'm going to talk about. Secondly, I have never worked in a contract research organization or CRO. So essentially, I'm only going to talk about innovation-driven companies. Okay. So what I'm going to talk to you about is starting a biotech company. Why do you even start one? There has to be really good reasons, and you have to have some key important things that should be there in a company. What kind of monies will you need? As you will see, as you move forward, you will need a lot of money. How do you raise that? There's another thing called valuation. Every company has a certain value. Just like a home that you see in your neighborhood, it has a certain value. And as you build on it, suppose you build a second floor, third floor, right? The value of the home will go up. Similarly, in your product also and a company also, as you make improvements, the value will go up. And that's actually a very important metric of how you should raise funding. I'll also give you some insights on some really critical things you need for fundraising, without which I think you're not going to be, you're less likely to be successful. Finally, I'll talk about what's called an initial public offering, which I really think in any entrepreneur's journey is really the final successful event that happens. So I'll describe to you what that is as well. So this is just to set the stage. The process of discovering new drugs or a new product is pretty intense in the biotech field. As you see, there are different steps to it. You start with discovery, and then you have to show toxicity, clinical trials, all of that. The point of me showing this is that biotech business, unlike the IT business, takes a much longer time, 10 to 12, before you can actually launch a product. It needs a lot of money, and I'll show you. But the good news is, as you move forward from one stage to another, the valuation of your company will go up, and the risk that the product carries will also go down. So it's very different than IP, very well defined, and time to market for a new product based on innovation. Typically, a new therapeutic will be 10 years from when you start. I just want to tell you what my career, in just in a simple table, and why I think I have learned so much is my first job, as was mentioned, was at Park Davis, which later got bought out by Pfizer. It's a large US pharma, as everybody knows. So what did I learn there? I was a team lead. My job was to take Lipitor and see how different or how much better it is than other drugs. It's called product differentiation. Uh, After a postdoc, I had no knowledge of drug discovery at all. And this is where I learned how to do drug discovery, the process that goes with it. Very important for my career was my stay at Pfizer, because These skills you and I don't have. When we go from academia, right? Academia never teaches all of these skills. So it was actually very important time of my life that I spent there because I learned how to do science and how to do drug discovery science, how to make science decisions and all of that. I had no business skills. Nobody in a large pharma, that one of the issues is that if you are a scientist like I was, you will be taught very few business skills because that's a whole separate group that does that. So therefore, I left and joined a startup called Astrogenics, and I'll tell you more about all of my learnings that or most of my learnings that I'm going to talk to you about today. The business skills came from a startup. So I think if you want to learn business skills and combine with science, a large pharma is not the place for you. Then I joined Dr. Reddy's. I joined Dr. Reddy's and I learned how to manage a portfolio. So I learned a lot of how to manage 300 people and how to do product planning and all of. So as you can tell, at each different jobs that I have I have learned a new skill, and that's a very important lesson for young people. Is don't just go to a job because they give you 5,000 rupees more. Make sure you learn a new skill because that's what builds a career. Then I've done two more startups. One is called Caris Therapeutics, and then Utopia, I'm currently working. So I have a lot of experience in doing this. I need help in, okay. So when you start a company, there are three elements you must have. Without this, just because you published a paper in Nature or Science or some hotshot journal doesn't mean that idea will become a product. So the first thing you need to do, and this is very important in raising funds also, is identify a product that a patient will take or a physician will prescribe. It has to be what we call an unmet need. So if you want to launch another aspirin, for example, there is zero market for it. Nobody's going to buy your aspirin, right? So you have to identify a product, an idea, a product that fulfills an unmet medical need. The other thing you will need to really get funding is to have a patent position. When you buy a home, right, you own the home. That's real estate is your property. In our business in science, our property is the patent. It's called intellectual property for a reason. You own that patent. Only you can make that product, nobody else. So make sure that your idea is patentable. If you don't have a patentable idea, very likely you will not get any funding later on. The other thing to do is have very experienced people around you. I know young people think this is my idea and all that, but this is such a long journey, and risk of failure is so high. Very important, very early on, bring on experienced people to your business. So make sure you have all these three elements before you start a company. So the process of getting funds is globally very well defined. There are generally three stages. One is called seed, and I'll tell you what that seed funding means. Seed funding really is for the initial part of the work, and I'll tell you who gives you that seed money. The second is called Series A, B, C, and that's for more as the product has advanced more into clinical trials and your funding needs have increased significantly. That's what Series A, B, C will come into play. The final thing is once you have a commercial product, potentially then you need to spread launch the market globally, scale it up and all that. And for that, you need much more money. And that is only happens through what's called an initial public offering. So we will talk about all these three stages of funding that I have gone through, and these are global metrics by which funding is given. One important thing, if you're a startup CEO or any C-level executive, very important for you to understand how funding works, how do your company is valued. All of that is don't just say, I'm a scientist, I'm going to be a scientist, I'm good at that, which is given. We expect as a funding person, I expect you to be a scientist, but I also expect you to understand basics of the business. How is funding? How is valuation? When should you get funding? So all of those who are out there who think that I'm a great scientist, Please learn business skills. 9 out of 10 businesses in the startup world fail because we don't have business skills. It's a very important thing to have. So I talked about the 3 different stages. One is called seed. Let me tell you more about this. Seed funding is the initial funding, and usually it's about 1 to 5 crores. And this largely comes from yourself or your co-founder. Like in Utopia's case, that's what it is. Your friends and your family and grants. So this really is very low on scientific due diligence, I'll talk. And this really only lasts about 1 to 5 crores. And you can only use this for about 1 to 2 years to establish a proof of concept that your idea is working or you have a prototype. Beyond that, when you need to grow, then you need to go to what's called Series A, where the amounts that you will need are much more. You might need 15 plus crores, and that only a venture capitalist can give you. Very rarely do friends and family give you 15 crores for that. So you have to graduate to what's called a Series A. And the idea there is that you will move the product forward into clinical trials and demonstrate that your product will there. That may not be enough. Sometimes you'll have to go to Series B, which is another round of funding, or C, where you need a lot more money. And this is where you do even more advanced clinical trials. So it's a very clearly laid out game plan. First seed, and then you show something, then Series A by venture capitalists, Series B or venture capitalists. And once you need very big amounts of money, you have to then go do an IPO. So seed funding, let me talk about that. It is the lowest hanging fruit. It is probably the easiest money you will ever get. There's hardly any due diligence because it's you, your co-founders, and your friends and family who think you're great and give you money. So they are not doing any due diligence, right? So it's the lowest money that you can get. So use it wisely. When you get seed funding, use it wisely. And the amount that you will get is about 1 to 5 crores, like I said. And the investors typically are friends and family. There's also another subset of investors who invest at this stage called angel investors. So these are very rich people who actually might say, my somebody in my family has diabetes. You're actually making a product for diabetes. I want to invest in that. So they have a personal reason for investment. So those are called angel investors. Again, the due diligence on science is extremely low here. So don't get carried away saying, I raised 10 crores in seed, my science must be very good. Seed funding from friends, family, and angels is actually has very little due diligence done. Another excellent way at this stage for you to get funding, and this is through government grants, and this is called non-dilutive. So all along when you've been taking money from friends and family and angels, in return for taking their money, you have to give them a piece of your company, right? So you own 100%, but when friends invest, you have to give them 20%. That's the ownership they have. In a grant situation, you will be given a grant, and these are grants that are given by BIRAC, which is called BIPP, BIG, SIBRI. These are grants that are given to you with zero expectation of any ownership in returns. So you're not diluting any of your ownerships, and that's why it's called non-dilutive funding. I urge all of you to go through this. We have in the past gotten grants because it does 2 things. One is you're getting money for almost free. There's no loss of your ownership. The other thing is there is an external validation because these are all peer reviewed. Unlike a seed funding, grants are actually peer reviewed. There's a review committee that reviews your product and compares it to others and gives you funding. So if you are a startup, make sure you keep applying to grants because that'll you also get a feedback from granting agencies. So very good money, very good idea. So use the seed and use that money also then to write grants as well. One of the key things that I really think people don't have, at least in India, that I notice, and most companies don't have a strong advisory board. you need to have people who are unbiased sitting on your board, either as a scientist or a business people. As I will show you later at Utopia, we have that already. I'm a very big believer of having experienced people, maybe even better than you, be on your advisory board there. Because what happens is you and me as a scientist, we are passionate about our idea. We think there is no other better idea than that. But that's not how it works. As I said, when you publish a Nature or a science paper, it doesn't mean it's going to be a product. So when you have external people on advising you, they will tell you what is real. So please have at least one or two advisors on your board, even when you start your company. Don't wait saying, I'll do that next year. That might be too late. So, very, very important advice I'm giving you is to have advisors on board very, very quickly. So, just building on that theme, an important lesson. This is a lesson I learned at AstraZeneca, which was a startup I talked about. I left Pfizer and joined this as a startup. I was employee number 2 or 3, maybe. And the reason I joined because I felt that in Pfizer I was not going to learn business skills, and I ultimately wanted to be a CEO. Right. So for that you need business skills. So AstraZeneca was actually a spin-off from Emory University. There were 2 faculty there. They were full professor. They had a good idea, and they wanted to develop a product out of it. They went to venture capitalists for funding. What the VCs told me is, you don't have any industry experience at all. Unless you don't get somebody who has industry experience, we will not give you money. So that's how they recruited me, because I was coming from Pfizer and had industry experience. The other thing that was told to them was, you need to have patent position. So when I came in, within the first year, we developed a patent. And then finally, they also told us, you need to have an advisory board, because your opinions are basically biased. So you need that. So we lined up all three. And I tell you, within having all these three, within 3 months of that, we got venture capitalist funding. This is true for any funding now, not just VC funding. Anybody today looking for funding or to fund you will ask for all of this, right? So make sure, a very important thing is to have all of these when you start. Don't wait for 5 years and do all this. Do it within the first year of your startup company. Make sure you have industry experienced people, you have patent position and advisors there. One last thing is, a lot of people, all of us think that I worked at a very large pharma, so I have all the business skills. Large pharma teaches you zero business skills unless you are at a senior level, like senior vice president and all. So if you work for large pharma and you think you know business, that's actually not true. All you know is your domain knowledge in that product, right? So don't get into this thing, think that I work for large pharma, so I have business skills. Business skills is something you only learn at a startup company, not in large pharma at all. So, what is a company valuation? As I told you, when you have a home, you bought it for 10 lakhs, and then you build another floor on that, and your valuation of your home will go up to, say, 30 lakhs. And then you put air conditioning in it and a garage in it, it goes to 50, 60. So, the value of your property is increasing, right? Uh, exactly like that. When you have an idea, the value of your company at an idea stage is pretty much zero. But once you show some animal studies that the idea is working, the value goes up from zero to maybe 1 million. And as you progress it more into clinical trials, it will go up to 10 million, 50. So this is called an increase in valuation. So when you're looking to raise funding, don't do it before your valuation has reached certain. Only after it has reached. I'm showing you a green arrow there. Secure investment after you hit a major milestone. What should be that milestone? It's left to you. Some people like to wait as well late as possible. Some like to do it early. That depends on a lot of circumstances. But use valuation as a guide of your company to really be able to say, now is when I'm going to get funding. Don't just go out anytime and say, I got this good piece of data, I need some money. No, you have to hit some milestones there. So at the bottom, I have shown you that the kind of monies you can raise as you progress forward. Very important guide to raise funding is know the valuation of your company. right? And you can either, there are many different ways to get valuation, but you can also get to an external accounting company or something, and they'll do valuation based on, again, it's a real estate analogy. If you have a house that's 1 crore and your neighbor's house looks very similar and it's 2 crores, people say the valuation of your house shouldn't really be 1 crore because your neighbor has same, it should be 2 crores, right? So that's one of the ways of doing valuation, but get reality check by getting a valuation done through a third party before you do it. I have so much experience now, I can just hear a story and tell you what the value. But as a startup, you may not have that experience. So, I mean, I'm happy to help you, but it's best done through unbiased third party. Know your valuation, because when somebody is giving you money also, they will go through the same thing. They will do valuation and say, well, he's asking for 10 million, but the value of his company is only 3 million, right? So you need to know what the value of your company is. So the next stage of Series A and B, you have to deal with what are called venture capitalists. A lot of people are scared of this word. Some people call them vulture capitalists. So these are companies whose whole business is to invest in different startups and have a high return of investment. So if investing 1 crore, their expectation is that you will make 10 crores for that. So it's a pretty much a high risk, high reward business. There are a lot of venture capitalists in this world. The United States is probably the best country which has venture capitalists. And I went through that experience, who will fund your venture, even though you may not have any revenues. But this is very, very tough money. India, I think, still doesn't have good venture capitalists. I'm honestly telling you that in India right now, getting funding for ideas that are high risk and high reward is still not very well developed. So if you don't get any funding through Indian VCs or Indian funding people, don't be disheartened. That's just the culture is such that that's what's happening. So don't be disheartened. But if you went to the right people, you'll get funding. I think in about 5 years from now, India will probably be in a situation where a venture capitalist will say, okay, I see this is a bright idea, it's high risk, but I'll invest. Today, we are not there yet. So these are venture capitalists, and I have had a lot of experience with them. So what do they look for? Most of what they look for is what are you going to use their money for? How will you use it? How are you going to spend it? Are you going to waste it or not? So first cut is all financial. For a venture capitalist, how much is he asking for? 5 million. Okay, what is he going to do with it? When will I make, 25 million out of that? So it's a very heavy financial due diligence that they do. But also, they will also look at number one is team credential. Do you have experienced people working at the company or advising you? Because this is a very difficult business, right? Experience, unfortunately or fortunately, is a very important experience that has actually gone through this whole process. Experienced people who have failed or been successful know how to navigate this pathway. So have a strong team. Either you hire them or you have them as consultants. Patent is the second one. If you don't have a patent, no VC is ever going to fund you. It's straightforward. If you don't have a strong team, strong patent, not going to happen. And of course, the scientific validation. VCs generally themselves don't have the capability to do hardcore science validation, but they use, in our case at AstraZeneca, Nobel Prize winners were used to, I had to present to Nobel Prize winners and defend the science, who then told the venture capitalists, yeah, I think what he's saying is right or not. So very, very thorough due diligence from a venture capitalist. It's probably the highest level of due diligence you will ever have in your life. You think marrying somebody was a lot of due diligence? That is nothing compared to when you get talk to a venture capitalist. So how do you prepare for that? I think the first thing is you need to have a good pitch deck. What is a pitch deck? A pitch deck is about 12 to 15 slides about your business idea. Who's the team on it? What is the data do you have? Where do you think the product is going to be? How much money is it going to make? An IP. So about 12. Don't make it like 50 slides. The worst pitch deck I have ever seen is something that had 50 slides. I would say, because you understand this, venture capitalists go through opportunities for funding, probably 10 different companies or 15 different companies in in a month, right? So they don't have the time to go through 50 slides. You just have to be able to tell your story in a 10-slide pitch deck and tell it very crisply. You also have to tell them how much money you want to raise and what you will do it. In return, what they expect is you need to have clear, defined goals. I'm taking your money today, and by 2026, I'll have the product in the market. And this is how I'm going to spend the money. So, a very important piece of a good pitch deck with the venture capitalists is how you will spend the money and how you will make the money for them. It's the same thing for B and C. Just the tickets, the amount of money you are asking from a VC is much larger. If you finish phase one clinical trials for B and for Series B or C, you will be needing money for phase two and phase three. Exact same requirements that they have, exactly what I just said. So key lessons that I have learned, I must have, we had several venture capitalists at AstraZeneca that funded us. I just told you I had to make presentation to Nobel Prize winners. We see due diligence can involve background checks. It's not just the pitch deck. They will, from what I heard, they called my graduate school mentors to find out, does this guy Saxena really does he have integrity? Does he know what he's doing? Is he going to run away with our money? So don't be surprised if this kind of background checks are also done on you. So if you're hiding some skeletons, make sure that those skeletons are buried because it will be found out by venture capitalists. The other thing that I found with venture, they will, once they give you money, they come and sit on your board. It's called a board seat. They will be very engaged. You'll have to meet them, if not once in 3 months. I used to meet with the board at AstraZeneca once a month, actually, because they're eager to see what is the progress, how much money is being spent, when will I make money. The other thing that comes with it, a very tight control. When I was at AstraZeneca, I am an avid motorcycle guy, and I told my CEO, I was a CSO, I was not CEO, that I'm going to buy a motorbike. He said, wait, we have to check with the board because that's a high risk thing that you're going to do. So he checked with the board, can Saxena buy a motorcycle to ride around? Right? This is in the US. They said no. And I asked why. They said, what if you get killed on a motorcycle? The risk of you getting killed or having an accident in a motorcycle is 10 times higher than in a car. So they said no. They said, if you die, all of our investment is gone. It's not that they loved me. They were worried about money. So there will be very tight control when a VC takes over a board. Be prepared, you know, and sometimes what happens is if they don't like you or not the job you're doing, they will bring in somebody else. So be prepared for all this. These are some of the downside of getting venture capitalist money. On the other side, they will help you build the business. They will make all the connections for you. They will, go to large pharma and present the case. So because they want to make money too. Before you take venture capital money, remember that it's a double-edged sword, right? So it's not just saying somebody giving you a check and coming back in 5 years. No, you have to report to them every month and be prepared to and go through a lot of different scenarios. The one thing I like at this stage, if you've done clinical trials, say phase one or phase two, your best, just like the grant was there at the seed stage, I think your best bet is to go partner with a pharma company. I told you about Pfizer, right? Right now, I think 40% of Pfizer's budget is given to in-licensing products. So what is an in-licensed product? That's a product that your startup or my product has been developing, and they will just take it over from you in return for some kind of funding. It provides a lot of validation of your science. It gives you a lot of visibility, and if a large pharma is serious about it, it probably will become a product one day, which it probably would not if just you and I were to do this. So you'll get what's called an that's licensing deal. When you sign the deal, there's something called a term sheet. The other thing, all business development people and C-level people and startup CEOs must know what is a term sheet. How do you structure a term sheet? What goes into a term sheet? What do you need to be aware of in a term sheet? If you don't know that, don't go to a VC, right? Period. I really think you need to understand what is a term sheet. It's very important that you understand. All this I learned at AstraZeneca. Pfizer, Park Davis taught me none of this. So anyway, when Pfizer takes over your product, it's called a licensing deal. They'll give you an upfront payment, usually non-refundable, and depending on the value of the product, it can be 10 million to even 100 million. An example recent is Moderna for the COVID-19 vaccine, actually partnered with AstraZeneca, very early stage, and they got this money. Then once AstraZeneca or Pfizer takes your product and moves it from preclinical to phase 1 to phase 3, it triggers success milestone payments, which also add up to a lot of money. And the total deal value in today's world can be up to 1 billion. You won't get 1 billion right away, but as your product moves forward, you'll also get part of the revenues. When the product is commercialized, it's called royalty. The large company will also give you 5 to 15% of the sales or the profits that you get. So pharma partnership is an excellent way of moving a startup company forward. It's very difficult, as I said, in this day and age, and I almost think unrealistic and not the right thing to do is to try and say that I'm going to be a fully integrated Pfizer one day. Don't do that. An excellent de-risking mechanism is find a partner and then handhold, let them handhold. For your second product, you could actually take it all the way yourself. For the first product, please find a pharma partner and do it. And like I said, be clear on what the term sheet says, because a lot of times what happens, a pharma partner is just taking over your program or your product just to kill it because they don't want any competition. That's why you need to understand what the term sheet says. Very, very careful. This happens. But beautiful, beautiful way of de-risking, adding value, and potentially seeing your product commercialized is pharma partnership. Today, if you don't think your idea will meet a pharma partnership specifications, drop that idea. Don't like if you're just saying, I'm going to make fresh coffee for you. That's not something, that's such a plain vanilla thing. Nobody is going to partner. It has to be a lot very innovative and something that large pharma would like. So make sure you go back and evaluate if your idea, would Pfizer buy your idea or not? So just do that. So this is some examples of how I have done licensing deals before. At Trogenics, when I was there, we actually at the phase 1 stage, we did a $1 billion deal. This was back in 2005. And the drug was for heart disease, cardiovascular disease. We got $100 million upfront, non-refundable. That means they gave us $100 million and said, keep it. And they took the drug and developed it further. That deal actually was the deal of the year that year. That was back in 2005. One total deal was 1 billion now. So in those days it was very uncommon. So that was a great experience. I have also done when I was at Dr. Reddy's. Actually, I structured a term sheet. I led the negotiation. I did everything, and we did a diabetes product deal with Novartis. So my AstraZeneca experience came in very, very handy because I knew the whole process. I was able to do that. Most recently, I did it at Carrier Therapeutics, which is another startup. We got a multi-billion-dollar, and this was the preclinical stage. The beauty of this was in 2011-12. At preclinical stage itself, we got a multi-billion-dollar. We were a virtual company. Carrier Therapeutics was a virtual company of like 5 people, and we got a multiple. So deals do happen, and that's a great way of de-risking and monetizing your program. But make sure the science you're doing, the product idea you have, is something a large pharma would be interested in. Like I said, large pharma is zero interested in curing flu anymore, for example, or aspirin. So your idea has to be innovative enough. But a great way of de-risking is to do pharma deals. So key lessons I learned, and this is something you should really write down. Your data has to be immaculately archived. When pharma wants a partnership, they will go through your data notebooks from cover to cover, just to make sure you're not lying to them. They actually set up what's called a war room. This is actually a room in which they all sit. They come to your company, and you have to provide them access to a server which has all the data. So make sure, so from day one, make sure you're taking good notes, you're archiving everything. And the other thing, there's a tendency is we only like to present the experiments that work. Do not do that because you have to showcase the experiments that didn't work also. That's very, very important. And when you present to them, what I found worked for me a lot was be very transparent, but also be very confident. Don't be desperate saying, sir, we need this deal badly. We only have 1 month's more money left. Otherwise, the product is. Don't say all of that. Be confident. Present a scenario that you believe in the product, and the product, if you don't take it, Pfizer, Merck will take it from you. That's the confidence you have to show. The last thing I'm going to tell you is for pharma partnership, everything, even your WhatsApp, will be subject to inspection. We lost one deal because one company, US-based company, saw emails where one of my vice presidents received an email from a senior scientist at the bench saying, "Sir, the experiment is not working. What should I do?" They got onto that and they said, "We need to see what happened there." So this is my advice, and I strongly advise even people in our group, don't put things on a WhatsApp. WhatsApp is probably the easiest thing into hack into, number one, and number two, it is subject to inspection. So very important lessons for pharma partnerships. So my final is, what is an IPO? You've gone through seed money, you've gone through Series A, Series B, and now you suddenly need $100 million. No VC is going to give you $100 million. VCs don't work like that. They stop, much earlier. So another way to get large chunks of money is what's called an initial public offering. This is where you hear, IPOs all the time. So all of this while you were getting money from private people, private VCs, private friends and family, and giving them a piece of your company. When you do an IPO, you're actually telling anybody on the street, saying, you can buy a few shares of my company for this, and then you will be an owner too. In return, you will get the money and use that to launch your product. So this is a very successful mechanism in the United States. For the final stage of commercialization, people usually use that, and uh, there's a lot of preparations, a lot of financial due diligence that has to be there. And your product, you cannot just have one product, you have to have multiple products, because people, when they're investing, if they see only one product and if that fails, they lose their money, right? So you usually have to have a pipeline. You have to have a clean financial history. You have to hire a banker. This is not something you can do. There are specialized bankers like Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs. You have to go to them and say, we want to have an IPO. This is our story, and this is the amount of money we want to raise. What they will do is they will evaluate whether you have the profile to do an IPO. If they agree to come on, they will collect a fee, in return for which they will let you present to different, life insurance companies, for example, or even large banks. When they take your money, you know what they're doing? They're reinvesting in IPO type of companies. That's where they also have to make a money, right? The banks also have to make a money. Insurance companies also have to make a money, right? How do they do that? They actually invest in early stage companies and IPOs, and that's how they make. So the banker that you hire will take care of all that. He'll take you, and you have to go through and make a presentation. That's called a roadshow. So this is a very, very regulated process. You have to have the government approve it. They will go through all of the details. The best part I found was what's going on a roadshow. As I just said, there's like 50 companies interested in investing, right? These are insurance companies, life insurance, or anybody. A lot of companies, they like to, you know, invest in startup companies to do that. So I think in about 3 weeks, I must have done 50 presentations. Each day we used to do 3 to 5 presentations. You go there with your pitch deck, the guy will say, okay, what's the story? What are you selling? You have to say, this is the product, this is the amount of money it's going to make, and this is where we see it going. So then he'll say, okay, I will buy 10,000 shares of this. So the banker will note all that. So you have to have enough people interested in buying your share to go to an IPO. Just because you think it's a great idea, you can't have an IPO. There has to be buyers in that. And the buyers only specifically go by what's called a roadshow. The finance person will present, the CEO will present, I presented as CSO. Everybody has to present and convince the potential investor that there is a story here that they can make money out of. Most exciting experience that I've ever heard. Hopefully, one day I'll write a book on that. So what can a good IPO do? If you CRISPR Therapeutics was a company that was valued at about 90 millions at IPO, and they used that money and developed a product. And within 4 or 5 years, I think they became 3.5 billion valuation. So if you use the IPO money wisely, the valuation or the market cap of your company can go up by fours. Why, and how do you do that? You have to deliver on what the story that you sold. When I went to the roadshow, I said, I'm going to have three assets commercialized by this. If all three actually work, then my market cap will go up. Vice versa, there are companies that promise a lot of different things, but they don't deliver, and your stock will fall. So this is Rubius Therapeutics. IPO raised $24 million valuation. It fell by 85 because they did not meet the milestones they had told people they were going to hit. So it's a double-edged sword. You know, the IPO is a great fun, a lot of money, but also you are bound by performance. You have to perform. So I've had two experiences, IPO experiences in my life. It's like lightning hit me twice. One was at AstraZeneca, very interesting. In the United States, we had no revenues. All we had was an asset which was in phase 1, phase 2 actually, and we had a very successful IPO. You can list either on Nasdaq or NYSE. Nasdaq is something like Bombay Stock Exchange, and the other one is National. In India, we have Bombay Stock Exchange and National Stock Exchange, right? In US, they have NASDAQ, which is more for tech companies, and they have New York Stock Exchange. So AstraZeneca, we actually had no revenues, but on future promise, investors, bought our shares. I think it IPO'd at $7. It went all the way to $44. So you see the huge increase that we had in valuation. Unfortunately, what happened with AstraZeneca was the product failed in phase 3 and the stock really crashed. So that's a risk that you always have. When you have an IPO and are publicly listed, if you don't perform up to expectation, your stock is going to fall. NYSE, this was the Dr. Reddy. You can see me, there's an arrow, right? This is actually at the stock exchange office where you ring the bell. Right in the middle is Dr. Reddy, right in the extreme corner. I was there. As I said, CSO, CFO, everybody has to be there. Dr. Reddy's was very different. It was already had revenue, so it was not a problem. It's still going strong, so that was also a great experience. So, I've had two very, very enriching experience of taking a company through the roadshow onto an IPO. So my scorecard, and this is my second last slide, I think, as AstraZeneca, as vice president, we did do an out-licensing, as I talked to you about at phase 1 itself. It was a $1 billion, and we had an IPO too. So, huge success. Unfortunately, the product failed, company went down. Dr. Reddy's, we actually did do a licensing deal. I talked about Novartis. We also had an IPO and it's still going strong. I'm no longer part of Dr. Reddy's, but the company is going strong. Carius, which was another startup that I started, we did do a licensing deal, multi-million-dollar deal at preclinical stage. So for the right asset, you don't have to wait till phase 2 to do a licensing deal. You can do it early enough. So that's the decision you'll have to make. We never had an IPO. Not every company is going to have an IPO. Maybe 1 out of 100 usually has an IPO. Utopia is my current company. We would like to do a deal on our program at post phase 1 clinical trials. I don't see us ever going to be an IPO because I think our strength again is to be a discovery engine. I'd like to keep discovering things and then find licensing partners and build the company that way, not go through an IPO. So pretty exciting times I've had. So the key lessons I want to give you from this is take-home messages is plan your financing events. Don't say, oh, I only have money for 1 more month. I don't need to raise money. That's not how it works. You have to be driven by the valuation of your company. From when you started to now, has the value increased? Only when you hit a milestone where the value increases, generally is when you should raise money. Otherwise, you'll be undervalued and you'll be selling a big chunk of your company for much less value. Big believer of using experts as much as possible. right? And I also believe that you need to have people better than yourself on the advisory board, people who you respect. Currently at Utopia, I have Satish Chandran, who was the ex-CSO of vaccines for Pfizer. Because I don't come from a vaccine background, and this guy, and right now our main product is a vaccine. This guy is the world's leading expert coming from Pfizer vaccine. So we got him on board. Mark Urantala is also on the board. He has gone through so much of the business of doing a startup, getting it funded, getting it profitable. I don't have that much experience as he does. I brought him on board. Third person we have, you also need a clinician. We are dealing with liver diseases, Utopia. I bought Sonal Asthana, who's a transplant surgeon at Aster and Bangalore. He has. So bring people who are complementary to what your skills are and preferably better than you. Don't be afraid to bring people who are better than you. My last piece of advice is don't just work on one product, because if that product fails, your company is going to go down, no more fundraising. So have at least 2 or 3 products. So I'm going to stop here. It's, I think, 12:20. We'll take questions for about 10, 15 minutes. So thank you so much for your time. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your inspiring journey of fundraising. Now we are moving to question and answer session. Audience, if you have any questions, please unmute yourself and ask. Otherwise, you can put your questions on chat box.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful talk. Actually, I have a question.
Yes.
Sir,
Go ahead.
what advice would you give to new founders, sir?
I mean, new founders, really, I know it's very exciting to be a founder and you have good ideas, but get a reality check on, is your idea really worth forming a company or not? Which means, is there a product there or not? Get more experienced people around you to be able to do that. So I think some of the critical things that I see missing in most startups here, they're all being run by scientists, but a company really eventually is a business. So you need to have business people, you need to have experienced people, and plan B. I mean, I'll give you an example. At Utopia, originally we were targeting the product for cardiovascular disease, but we saw obesity market really growing up. So we changed, we pivoted. So always have a plan B, have business mentors, science mentors, and have a plan B. Don't be afraid to bring people who know more than you. 9 out of 10 human beings don't do that, but please do that, because that's the only way you're going to be successful. Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Hello.
Yes.
So I have a question. What are the venues where we can approach these?
Oh, you can Google and see. You will see there's a whole list of venture capitalists in India that are there. You can also go to one of these conferences like the Bio Asia conference or the Bio Bangalore conference. All of the venture capitalists are usually there as well. So either go to these science come business conferences where VCs come, or Google and go ahead and contact them directly. That's their business. If you write to them saying, I have an interested idea, they'll say, okay, send us your pitch deck. So don't approach them without having a pitch deck. But it's very easy to find a venture capitalist now in this day and age. So whether you'll get the money or not is something very different, but it's very easy to make the initial contact with them. So, and you should do that. It's a reality check. Every company should knock on doors of venture capitalists, because that's also a learning experience for you. When they reject you, they'll tell you why they're rejecting you. That's a learning for you. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Uday.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, sir. Thank you very much. Very informative. It's 2 o'clock in the morning here.
I understand.
But,
I know. I saw that.
but
Yeah.
that's okay. That's okay. It's worth my time. Can you give me some advice to academic
Sure.
people like me? We have patents. We have, demonstrated the product. but we have no clue where to go, how to do. To start with, forget about going to the venture capitalist at this time.
Yes. Yes.
But we are at the beginning. We have no clue how to make a company so that we could at least seek for the SPR.
Yeah, no, completely understood. I'm very happy to help you. You are a long-term friend who I respect a lot. So everything you just asked for, I have all that experience. So a simple thing we can get started with, if you send me like a 10-slide deck on what the idea is and what the plans are, I'll guide you from there. So 100%, I'll guide you from there. So,
Thank
but
you.
if not me, you can go to somebody who has experience.
I
Kind
don't
of
know
like
anybody.
me. No,
I don't know anybody.
I'll be more than happy to help. Yeah, I'll be more than happy
Maybe
to help you.
when I come to Hyderabad next time, I'll
Sure.
make sure I meet you.
Yeah. I think you're coming in August, right? So I'll be happy to meet you.
Yeah,
too.
something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. I'm thinking about it.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Yes.
Anybody else from the audience side?
Yeah, I think you can reach out to Saranya and get my email. I'll be happy to, a big part of my life right now is mentorship and helping companies. So I'll be, for free. I don't take any things. So I'll be happy to help any of you. But I think it's very important you consult with experienced people before spending time, money, and effort. Because what happens is, if you go in just like that and you fail for the rest of your life, you'll be disillusioned. So make sure you talk to somebody. Okay, Saranya, we're getting close to 12:30, so we should wrap up, I think.
Yeah,
So,
we can wind up.
yeah.
So once again, thank you so much, sir, for the insightful talk. So finally, I would like to thank you, our audience, for participating and their active participation during the talk. So once again, thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Bye.